to vanquish evil.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you another of my misunderstood movie reviews, and today I'm taking a look at the 2004 supernatural adventure film Van Helsing. The film is written and directed by Stephen Sommers, and it stars Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale, Richard Roxburgh, Shula Hensley, David Wenham, and Elena Anya, and Kevin J. O'Connor. Right, okay, the film focuses on Hugh Jackman, who plays Van Helsing. It is set in a time where he basically works for the church in Rome, hunting down creatures of all sorts of descriptions. At the beginning of the film, you see him hunting down Jekyll and Hyde, if you like. Well, Mr. Hyde rather than Dr. Jekyll. And then he is ordered to go to Transylvania as he's essentially asked to assist Kate Beckinsale's character, Anna, who is like one of the heads of a gypsy family that has been fighting Count Dracula for many, many generations. So he's to head out there, help them, and sort that situation out. When he gets out there, he's faced not only with Dracula, but he's faced with werewolves, Frankenstein, and all sorts of other manners of horrors. And it's up to him to team up with Anna to take down the evil in Transylvania. Right, what are my thoughts on Van Helsing? Well, why is this a misunderstood movie review? When I do one of these reviews, I like to focus on films that, when they were initially released, were, for whatever reason, a failure, whether it be critical, financial, whatever. Failed with audiences, even if it was a critical success. And this kind of failed with all three of them when it came out. I went to the cinema to see this when it came out. At the time, Hugh Jackman was a rising star after his star turns in the X-Men films, the early X-Men films, the first two. So he really was like, the toast of Hollywood at the time. And on paper, this sounded like the perfect movie in a lot of ways. Van Helsing as this, adventurer that, hunts and takes down legendary creatures of the night. The director of the Mummy series, writing and directing it. Top-notch special effects for the time, all that kind of stuff. It had a lot going for it, this film, and I think a lot was expected of it. However, for whatever reason, it failed, and we're going to talk about some of the reasons why I certainly think it failed. But I also want to talk about why I actually think this is a film that deserves some merit and, deserves kind of to be given a second chance by many people, or even a first chance by some of you. After Hugh Jackman, his superstar turn as Wolverine once again in Deadpool and Wolverine, now is the perfect time to revisit some of his earlier films in his filmography, and this is no exception. So why do I think this failed? Well, I think there's a few reasons why this failed. It's far too tame. It is. I think they basically tried to make a family movie. And it's not scary. Now you can kind of hover between the two. Like, I think he did that quite successfully with certainly his first Mummy film. That is actually, not graphic or anything like that, but it's got some genuine clever scares in it, that film. And I'm not saying this film should have been like a hard R or anything like that, and really graphic and gory, but still, for what it is, it's far too tame. It's clearly made to kind of be aimed for everybody, children as well, so it could, squeeze every pound or dollar out of everybody's pocket. And it backfired. I think they needed to kind of go with a particular feel for the film in regards to genuine horror at times, but also you could still have that adventurous feel, and I think they kind of misshot that a little bit. For me, it's just far too tame. The effects are at times pretty poor, I think. Even I remember at the time when I went to see this at the cinema, I remember thinking at the time that I thought the effects were pretty shit at the time. That's not to say they all are. I think the design for Frankenstein was quite good. I thought like the sets and the locations and everything like that. The set design was all very good, very gothic and all that kind of stuff. But the effects for his Dracula's brides I thought were pretty good as well, and I thought for the werewolves they were decent, apart from the ridiculous ripping, the skin off to get to the werewolf underneath. I thought that was a bit stupid. But some of the effects, especially for these winged creatures that Dracula's trying to hatch, were just so bloody stupid. And quite a bit of the other effects, like the flying effects and Dracula effects, which brings me very nicely onto Richard Roxburgh's performance as Count Dracula. It hovers very closely to Cringer. But it kind of just stays on the side of pantomime. It's way, way over the top, and it needed to be, I think, much more sinister. It's more laughable. So that just didn't work, I don't think, his performance in the film. And it's not his fault. He's following the direction of the director, and it just doesn't necessarily work. I think it's one of the weakest portrayals of Batman on the big screen, in my opinion. But in regards to what everything else I think doesn't work in the film, other than the ridiculous plan that Dracula's putting in place for him to hatch all these baby vampire things. I mean, there was a weird obsession in the late 90s and early noughties where, a lot of films were kind of doing that, you know what I mean? And it just didn't make a great deal of sense to me, his master plan, and it sucked, if I'm being honest. I just thought it was a bit rubbish. But beyond that, saying all that, putting all the negatives to one side, I think the film has got a great essential performance, I think, by Hugh Jackman as Van Helsing. It's a very likeable performance, as is Kate Beckinsale as Anna. You could question her Romanian accent a little bit, but, there are worse things going on in this movie than Kate Beckinsale's accent. It's fast-paced. You've got a nice comedy sidekick from David Renham, who plays Carl, who's like this monk that comes along with Van Helsing on the trip. If you like, he's like the Vatican's version of Q in James Bond, which is fun. And his performance, I think, is fun for the most part. So there's quite a lot as well, I think, going for this film. And it's got some fun action sequences in it. It's got some fun set pieces in it. I think the introduction to Van Helsing when he's going after Mr. Hyde is very good, even if the effects of Mr. Hyde aren't the best. His first introduction when he turns up in Transylvania, that battle with the vampire brides, I think is really well done. And the final battle, I think, just about delivers, but it's all quite predictable stuff, I suppose. But I personally think if they had have, toned down the CGI a little bit, toned up the horror a bit, I think they possibly would have had something a little bit better on their hands that might be more fondly remembered. But saying that, I don't think this is a bad film. Do I think this is a fantastic film? Absolutely, I don't know. But I rewatched this film for this review, and I was pleasantly surprised how entertained I was watching it, because it's a good few years since I've seen the film. And I remember distinctly not being fond of this film when it first came out. I remember being disappointed when I went to the cinema to see it, and it took me a while to watch it again. But yeah, I'm glad I revisited this film, and I encourage any of you out there to check this out. It's definitely one of those interesting films in Hugh Jackman's filmography, and he might have seen that interview junket that's going around with him and Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy, the director of Deadpool and Wolverine, where They show a picture of Hugh Jackman with his long flowing hair from this, and they all have a good laugh about it. It's quite fun, and he explains during that interview that there were hair extensions and stuff, but he carries it off pretty well, I think, Hugh Jackman in this role. So yeah, check it out if you've never seen it. If you have seen it and you haven't watched it for a long time, maybe give it another go if it turns up on your streaming service. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I will, of course, be back with plenty more reviews, content, and misunderstood movie reviews very, very soon.